Somebody once told me that a good teacher is not about how much knowledge you have, but it's about the way in which you are able to transmit this knowledge to somebody else.
Hello, I'm Catherine Fairweather and welcome to The Third Act, brought to you by Auriens, the gold standard in later living. This week, I'm thrilled to introduce as my guest Lynne Charles, the New York-born former prima ballerina who became the creative director of the English National Ballet in 2024 in her 70s. We get together at the school a walking distance from Auriens to discuss the importance of mentorship and the circle of life, her disillusionment with being ousted from the ballet corps on becoming pregnant, and finding resilience in adversity. Okay, Lynne, it's wonderful to be here in the English National Ballet School, down the road from Auriens, the residence of later living. And here you are in later life, although you look like a spring chicken. You're taking on this new role, your third act. How does that feel?
At times, overwhelming. I never thought at my age, I'm going to be 72 this year, I never thought at this point in my life I would be doing something like this. I danced quite late. I danced till I was 53.
Wow.
Yes, but I was very careful what I danced. I did age-appropriate roles, and I was also a single mom with a little boy, and so I didn't want to leave him with people, so he traveled all over the world with me, and so I did maybe 18 performances a year of age-appropriate roles from the time I was 49 to 53. And then at 53, I did my last performance in Japan and said, I'm good.
You knew when to end.
Yeah, it was after that last performance, I said, I don't need to do this anymore. And I didn't. And I've never looked back, and I've never regretted it. And I moved on into a profession that, as a child, I always wanted to do anyway. And then in 2001, I retired. I was a ballet mistress and teacher, and I retired because I developed a new method called 4-Point, which is a new sustainable, somatic, and mindful method to train dancers on point. And I wanted to retire from full-time work to develop this method, which I worked on with a doctor. It's now copyrighted. I never thought that I would be doing anything but that. I was going around guest teaching because you still have to survive and have money, but I was actually in pension already. And then I was actually guest teaching with English National Ballet with the new director, Aaron, who I know and who loves my 4-Point, and he wanted me to come and teach it to the women in the company. And it was through that I found out about the opening, and I applied for the job, and I got it. And I got it. It was a big surprise that I would get it, because I always thought that people would hold my age against me, the fact that I'm getting a job when I took it when I was 71. So I was surprised by that. And sometimes I am overwhelmed at the fact that I'm at least, from most people here, 30 years older than them. I've had 2 careers and children and grandchildren, and yet I'm still doing this job, and I believe I'm doing it really well.
And maybe this is a wonderful thing. It's encouraging for the rest of us. Why shouldn't people like you, with all the knowledge, experience, health, and mind, carry on working? Why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't we?
We should. It's just that society thinks that when we get older, we become less capable. It's a stigma, and I think that...
Ageism.
Yes, and it's a stereotype, and I think that... I believe that an artist is like a good red wine. The older it is, the riper the grapes, the better the flavor. I don't think an 18-year-old can be compared with a 35 or 40-year-old artist, because they have more baggage, and it's their baggage that makes them interesting.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, actually, your career has been one of fighting not only ageism, but sexism as well.
Yes.
I read that when you got pregnant, you were actually sacked from the Roland Petit company, weren't you?
Yeah.
Which is outrageous. Was that normal at the time, or is it normal now?
I think it's pretty normal. If you look in my age, in my time, people didn't have babies.
What, as dancers didn't have
it was very rare. I was a forerunner. People didn't cut their hair off. I cut my hair off. I had short hair, but people had long hair. And people did not give up their career to have kids. And now it's standard. Everybody has babies. They have time off to have babies. They have maternity leaves. But we're talking about when I was dancing, when I started in the 70s, and when it was the ballet boom, which we call the 1980s. That's when ballet was at its peak all over the world. People were not having kids.
So was it the 90s when you had your boy?
My son is born on August 28th, 1990.
And my goodness, so you were a provocateur. You were with your short hair and your and so you were sacked and you were furious, weren't you?
Yes. Well, when I had my son, I don't know. I always say when I had my son, I felt like I died and got reborn because I didn't want to do anything but be a mom. It was just, for me, I never thought I would have kids. It was never in my plan. And it's actually interesting because I was on tour with Roland Petit Company and with my son's father, with whom we were not married.
A ballet dancer?
Yes. And we were on tour in Korea. And every night when I would come home from a performance, wherever we were on tour, to have some kind of feeling of home, I would put on CNN News. I like to listen to the news. I like to hear the English language. I like to feel that I still had contact with America. And the wall was coming down in Berlin. And I sat up for astonished that this wall was coming down because I had lived most of my life in Germany. And, I have friends who jumped over the wall. The man I was married to, Neidhart, he escaped under a car, to get out of East Germany. So I lived that my whole life. I know more about that than I know about, America because I left at a very young age. And so sitting there and realizing that, oh my God, the wall came down. And then, of course, I went to bed with my boyfriend and forgot to take the pill. And 3 weeks later, I was pregnant.
So your child is a Berlin Wall.
Yes.
Baby.
Yes.
Goodness.
So it was never planned. And the minute I told him that I was pregnant, he left. So I did it all on my own. And Roland Petit tried to force me to teach. And it just was a very uncomfortable situation. And so I left and I said, I don't want to dance anymore. I want to be just a mom. And I went and studied sign language. I went and took computer courses. I went and took some training so I could be an airline stewardess. I wanted to do something different. But no one would give me a job in anything other than ballet. People kept calling me, come back, teach, dance, here's a gala. So I had to come back because I couldn't get a job doing anything else.
But is it because you couldn't get a job doing anything else? You mean no one would have you because you were... Why?
Because I had no training.
I see. Well, you were in your 30s or something then?
My son was born in 1990, and I'm born in 1954. So,
so
36.
36.
So at that time, I was considered old already. No, that time I was considered old to get a new job in a new field. And the reason I took up sign language was because I thought if I could sign with people, I could then teach them dancing movements. And then I felt that in order to survive in the new world, I needed to study all about computers and how to be able to do something like that. And then I went to many seminars to see if I could be an airline stewardess. But nothing. No one wanted a 36-year-old lady who didn't have a college degree, who had not even finished her last year of high school because I was already in a company. So I didn't have any qualifications. So I went back to ballet.
And that's when you started teaching ballet?
I started doing both. Sometimes because it was alone, me and my son, sometimes I would guest in a company for 3 months and then I'd have 2 months off and just be with my son. Then I would get a teaching gig. So it was kind of balancing both.
Were you living in Berlin still?
I never lived in Berlin. At that time, I was living in Marseille. And then at some point I moved back to Hamburg and then I moved to Sweden. I was really moving wherever the work took me. and basically raising my son all alone just on the money that you get from being a dancer and teacher, which is very little.
What an extraordinary life, Lynne. So you've had this nomadic life as well,
Yeah.
moving everywhere.
Yeah.
And you said you felt homesick for America at times when you had to listen to the...
Yes, but actually not homesick to be in America, because unfortunately I'm an only child. My mom was an only child. My dad was an only child. I have no family. So right now the only family I have is my son, who lives in California with his wife and my grandson. Otherwise I have nobody. So I just missed knowing what was happening in the world, but not in Chinese or Japanese or German, but in English. And somehow I've always followed CNN, and it just gave me a connection back to a world that was familiar to me.
Do you want to be connected to that world of America at the moment?
No. Actually, you couldn't pay me to go back and live in America.
You grew up in New York, yeah?
Yes. And when I left, I knew I would never go back.
Did you?
I actually thought I would live and spend my last phase of my life in Germany, and then this job came, and I never thought I would be living in... Every time I land from a plane, from a trip, I always think, I live in Mary Poppins land. And every time I go to Covent Garden, I'm like, this is where My Fair Lady was. I mean, I grew up on those movies as a kid. And I don't know, every time I came to London, even when I brought my son to London the first time, it was such a magical experience, and I never imagined I would live here. So, like, I'm in seventh heaven here.
I think it sounds like your life, you've been trying to shake off the mantle of dance, because you didn't even want to be a dancer at the beginning, did you?
No. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an English professor. I loved Elizabethan and King Henry VIII. My heroine was Mary Queen of Scots and Barbara Streisand. Can you imagine? Two different. But anyway, my dream was to be an English professor. And my dad left when I was very little, but what I do remember about him is he smoked a pipe, and it always smelled like cherry vanilla tobacco. So I wanted to marry a professor who had a beard and smoked a pipe, and I wanted to live on campus and teach English. So I never wanted to be a dancer. But I was a tomboy, and I ran around the streets of New York and was always dirty and always getting into trouble. So for my 13th birthday, my mom gave me ballet lessons.
And did you love them, obviously?
It just took me to another world that I never imagined existed, and I was hooked. But if you think about it, the circle goes around. I'm back to doing what I love the most, which is teaching. I think at heart I've always been a teacher.
Why does teaching resonate so much for you? What is it about teaching that you think is...
Somebody once told me that a good teacher is not about how much knowledge you have, but it's about the way in which you are able to transmit this knowledge to somebody else. Because if you have all this knowledge, but you can't make them understand, you can't get it across, then you're not a good teacher. And my own teacher, who I worship, used to say to me, Lynne, you're only as good as your students. If your students are bad, then you're a bad teacher.
Interesting.
And the other thing he said is you need to be responsible, because anything you do to your students, they are going to do to their students. So you are responsible for 2 generations, not just the ones you teach, but the ones that they will teach. So think very wisely when you become a teacher in how you share and how you are with your students. And that has always been my mantra. I see every student as an individual. I have a special talent for reading people, for feeling the energy. I read a lot of Carl Jung. I understand about the collective energy, and I'm very sensitive to a room. So if I'm a good teacher, I know whether I should leave you alone, or whether you're someone I need to push, or whether you're someone I need to tell you something funny to cheer you up. I know that this one is neurotic and she needs me to leave her alone. I know that this one is someone who needs to be pulled every day, because otherwise they don't have enough confidence to do it themselves. I believe that this is my greatest talent, this ability to read body language and read people and give each individual what they need.
And I guess as a teacher and as a dancer, the main thing is you're communicating a story and emotions, aren't you, as a dancer?
Yes.
And if you can't communicate as a teacher and as a dancer, then you might as well pack up and go home.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've had a life with a lot of ups and downs and struggles. How has that experience of that life transferred? How has it helped your personal growth? And how does it translate as a teacher? What do you like to impart to your students, given your own background and struggles? And
I think being a teacher today is incredibly difficult.
why?
I think COVID had a lot to do with it. I think we all know that the world changed during COVID. We've all changed since COVID. And especially in the arts, many things in the arts did not survive. Many schools closed. Many theaters and companies went bankrupt. Many dancers quit and never came back. Many ballet masters and teachers gave up because there was no work for them and they needed to feed their families. So the arts suffered greatly during COVID. And the generation of students that was 2 years, almost 2 years, in their homes doing class in front of a screen have many problems. They have problems being touched in pas de deux class. They have problems relating to other people. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed dancers are people who are very physical. And it used to be, oh, hi, how are you? People just, hi. Nobody touches each other anymore. Nobody hugs anymore. Nobody is as physical as we were before. Everybody's a bit reserved. And I feel that students have these issues. And they have these issues that they were not able to move and express themselves. They were confined to a little square of linoleum with a little ballet bar in front of a little screen, taking a class with other people they didn't know, with a teacher possibly they didn't know at home. And so they can be challenging. I feel that this is an issue. I feel that there is an issue of entitlement in young people today. I feel that there is an issue with
resilience.
Resilience because we are in a generation where we overcoddle our youth. And I don't believe this is just in dance. I believe this is in general. We overcoddle them and then they get into a job and the first time there's a conflict, they can't handle it. Or they get into a ballet company and they get injured 6 weeks in and then they're off the whole year. This ability to be able to just suck it up and move on, people consider that a bad quality today. And I don't get this. No. In my day, nobody ever abused me. Nobody ever called me fat or thin. Weight was never talked about. No teacher ever sexually tried to do anything to me. In my day, everybody was gay. And, there were less straight people than there are now. And basically, we just got on with it. We didn't spend hours talking about, are you a man? Are you a woman? Who are you? We just did our job.
Yeah.
It was a simpler time.
Yeah.
And now we work less and talk more. And I find this really boring and really difficult. And it doesn't help our youth. And sometimes I feel that teachers have become glorified babysitters. Because you can't raise your voice to them, you can't touch them. I was once told, if you give the same correction to a student 4 times, their parents can write in and accuse you of bullying them.
But ballet school is tough. Dance is tough. How do you get a bunch of children who have been protected by the pandemic and the other things, the societal changes, to understand that if they want to be dancers, it's tough physically and it's tough mentally? How do you instill that resilience and discipline?
That's something I'm trying to figure out because a lot has to do with the parents. Mm-hmm. Because today parents feel that they can interfere. And I think that parents have no business interfering. They cannot call up a ballet director and say, why did you not give my daughter that part? So why should they feel that they can call up the artistic director and say, why is my daughter not in the front? These are artistic choices. These are not personal. Art is art. You like Rembrandt, I like Van Gogh. Does that mean that Rembrandt's not good? It's just that's your taste. I mean, that's the beauty of art, is that there is the possibility to have so much because we all have our own taste. We all view it. It's what moves you. I remember when I went to see the musical Alexander Hamilton. I went because everyone was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I went to see it in London, and I didn't like it. And my son was like, oh, Mom, my God, what do you mean? It's like the best musical ever. And I said, Alex, you have to realize that my generation is not the rap generation. I'm before rap. So Hamilton is like 80% rap.
Yes.
So for me, I don't relate to that. So that just is like annoying in my ears. And even though I think the whole thing as a whole is good and everything, there's no melody, there's no singing, there's nothing that moves me. I'd rather watch Phantom of the Opera or Miss Saigon, where there's music. And it's nothing against the piece. It's just that I relate to the things from my generation. And rap is your generation. That's why you think it's amazing. You can sit and listen for hours on Spotify or whatever to people rapping. It just is annoying to me. I like Mozart. You think Mozart's boring. You know, it's a generation thing. And I think that in ballet, the generation today, they live in their phones. They hide in their phones and they escape in their phones.
They can disappear, can't they?
Yes, and so there is no art in a telephone. It has also no soul. And so I started when I came, we have a no phone policy.
How did that go down?
With a lot of resistance in the beginning. But now it's accepted.
Brilliant, you.
Because I said, you need to socialize. When I came here, my goal was to help my staff and the students understand that basically we need to learn to live in society together. And when you are a dancer, the first 4 or 5 years of your life are spent in the corps de ballet. And the corps de ballet in a company is a society. You live and work together. You're not the soloist. You're the group. And if you don't get on with the other members, they can make your life miserable, just like you can make their life miserable. And for a ballet to be beautiful, the corps de ballet has to be like 16 girls dancing like one. It needs to be like this.
They need to be enmeshed, yeah.
Yes. And the no phone policy, I said, if I catch somebody with a phone, I confiscate it, and you have to write me old school 350 times. I will not have my phone.
Excellent.
I think if you don't have your phone, you have to talk to the person sitting next to you. And that's what it's about. It's about sharing.
Do you think being a mother made you more creative? I'm really fascinated generally in the whole idea of motherhood and the creative process, because I was talking to an artist the other day, and they said she would never have children because she could infuse her. It meant that she could just focus on her work, and she thought that having children would take away from that creative process. But on the other hand, I've spoken to artists who said actually having children made them more creative, more fertile in their work. What do you think?
I always thought, as a child, I felt very unloved, and my parents separated, and I had a little bit of an abusive stepfather, and that's why ballet for me was an incredible escape from the reality of what my life was. And anyway, I ran away when I was 16.
Did you?
Yeah. And I feel that what I was searching for was this unconditional love. And as an artist, when I performed on stage, I felt loved and adored. You feel that energy. They applaud for you. They think they love you. It's unconditional. They have no idea whether you did a good show or not. They just love you. And when I had my son, when you have a kid, they love you unconditionally.
And you love them unconditionally.
And so I didn't need ballet anymore, because the love, to be loved, I felt now I had this baby who loved me. And so I didn't need that anymore.
Yeah,
and that's why I tried to go away from it.
Yes, I see.
Because for the first time, I felt whole.
Yes.
And I can see both points, but I think that what being a mother did was change my priorities and change my understanding. It gave me more empathy. And I feel that it helped me understand children. And that's why I pride myself on being a teacher who teaches individually. My philosophy is teach the person in front of you.
You initiated this incredible new way of training ballet dancers called 4-point. How did this inspiration come to you? And do you embrace change? Because it's about bringing in new ways of moving, fitness routines and sports challenges, science, isn't it? So
I was in Germany at the time, and I was ballet mistress to Bridget Breiner working in Gelsenkirchen. And then I was given an offer to become professor of classical ballet in the Folkwang University. And then I took that job and then worked as a guest with Bridget. So I was trying to develop my skills as a teacher, trying to open my horizon. And I started hearing that there was a 35% rise in foot-related injuries. And I started questioning why, and I started talking to dancers and saying, and they felt that the repertoire that they were having to do was much more challenging than the repertoire in my day, because in my day we did Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, Giselle, Romeo and Juliet, and then every once in a while we would do a contemporary piece. But nowadays, you do one night Sleeping Beauty, one night Billy Forsyth, one night Martha Graham, one night Johann Inger, and it's in socks, it's barefoot, it's on point, and this is too much on the body.
Right.
And so I started thinking, okay, there must be something that we can do to help dancers. And so I met this orthopedic doctor who used to be a dancer, and I started thinking about exercises and then talking to her and saying, if we did this, what does that actually do for the foot? Or if you had an injury like this, what kind of exercises? And then I started trying things out, and then I would take dancers and I would try it on the dancers. And then I started writing it down, and it came like this, and I created a method, and I wrote a book, a teaching manual for level 1 and for level 2 and 3. And then I started teaching it. And for me, the best thing that happened was COVID. Because during COVID, I created many, many videos. And I put them on YouTube, free, for dancers to do at home. And dancers all over the world after COVID were writing me how I saved their lives and how they would never have been able to get back to dancing if it hadn't been for my videos, and thank you so much, and this was amazing. And that made 4-point very famous.
And it was also your turning point as well as 4-point.
Yes.
Extraordinary thing.
And so I wrote a manual, got it copyrighted, and I started going around the world teaching teachers.
You are a youthful spirit. You can see that. Does it contribute to vitality in your personal life and in artists generally? Do you think being someone who looks forward and embraces change sort of keeps the aging process at bay?
I believe that as long as you keep learning, you stay young. And the moment you stop is when it's over.
Yes.
Because I learn. Yesterday, being at the Auriens and talking to these people, I learned something new every day.
Yeah.
You know, I how to relate to the students. This one's having more difficulty. How can I figure out a better way to help this person? I find it fascinating talking with people and seeing what can we do to make this better. I do find it difficult, though, that not everybody is like that.
No, some people are not forward-facing at all.
No, they're also very comfortable in their life, and they're fearful. Exactly. They don't want to take the risk because they don't know what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
They're afraid to step out of their box because they're in an area they're not sure of.
Yes.
And I find this difficult sometimes.
But also as a dancer, you're much more aware than other people of what your body does. And as we grow older, do you think being a dancer makes you more fearful of age or less fearful because you know how to look after yourself better? Or do dancers not really look after themselves? I would have thought they were fit and you would know how to eat properly.
I think it's very individual.
Yeah.
I think that some people, for instance, me, I was always 40 kilos. Now I suffer in my old age from a very bad hormonal imbalance, so I gained a lot of weight. And even if I starve myself, I can't lose it. And I'm too old to take hormones. But I think I don't smoke, I don't drink. I stopped smoking 8 years ago. I don't drink alcohol. I haven't had a drink in 30 years, when I was a teenager or young, but no. And I sleep a lot and I eat very healthy. I'm not vegetarian. I'm not weird. I'm just very normal. I'm not too much of this or too much of that. I'm just in the middle. And I feel healthy and happy, but your body does what it does and you can't fight it.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
I would like to see myself. My next goal is I have about 100 teachers worldwide who teach 4-point. And I would like to, I'm writing a new manual of how teachers can teach 4-point to other teachers. So that is the next thing I want to do, so that I'm preparing the legacy when I'm not here anymore, that 4-point would be able to continue with the generations to come. Because it has proven itself in the time in Brigham Young University in America. They have already done stats that have proven their foot-related injuries have reduced by 48%. And this year, a group of doctors and science people came here and tested all of our students. And then they're going to do a 2-year thing to show that 4-point helps the Achilles tendon and reduces injuries. This is wonderful, and so that's why I'm hoping that even if I'm not here, or the teachers that I have now that are older will teach new teachers.
Yeah, it's an incredible legacy, Lynne. And what a life. I hope you're writing a memoir.
I always thought, who would care about me? But actually, a lot of people, because I've also had very funny things in my life happen. But the thing is, I don't really have time to do it. So I'm kind of hoping I can find a ghostwriter who I could record. And I think people would find it amusing. I would also like it to be inspirational for people in my age group.
Yeah,
that they can still do stuff.
Absolutely. You are an inspiration. And I'm really thrilled to be speaking to you today. Cool. Thank you so much, Lynne. And that brings us to the end of today's conversation. If you've enjoyed it, do explore more episodes of The Third Act, either in your favourite podcast app or by searching for The Third Act podcast on Google. And if there's someone you think would enjoy what you've heard today, please do let them know about the show. This episode was produced by Pete Norton and made possible by Auriens, the gold standard in later living. I'm Catherine Fairweather, and you've been listening to The Third Act.